here in Boston today, which for me is very, very hot. Not like you guys who can deal with the heat. So the idea for this topic came to me today. Was doing another show with Jose Raymond, the Boston Mass. We do a new series called No Way Jose. If you haven't checked that out, definitely recommend. Jose is no bullshit, tells it like it is. OG, been around forever. Always great conversations with him. So we were talking today about how we're not obsessed with drugs. He's not, and I'm not. I'm not aware of every drug that's out there. I'm definitely not aware of every peptide and SARM that's out there. And I got criticized by the Girth. Hey, the Girth, if you're watching. This actually, I thank you for that because it gave me some good ideas. And I just wanted to get into it today for a little bit because this generation, and it's not just the young people, and it's the bodybuilders of this generation, whether they're 18 years old or 48 years old, I see this pattern again and again where the most important thing to them, the subject that they are most interested in and obsessed with is drugs. They want to know about every drug, every possible combination of drugs, trying to find the optimal dosage, the optimal combination. They're always chasing that because they think that's going to be the golden ticket, the holy grail that finally gets them looking exactly the way they want to look in their mind. And I'm here to tell you, it's not. It's not. First of all, it's always going to be genetics, number one. People with great genetics will always look way better than everybody else. And people with horrible genetics, they're never going to look that good. Most people have average genetics. That's just a fact. Most of you watching this, you're average. You don't have bad genetics. You don't have great genetics. You probably have average genetics, just like height-wise. I bet very few of you watching this are 6'11" as male, and very few watching this are 4'11" as males. You're probably in that average range somewhere in between. But I'm getting off topic. So another thing that caused me to come up with this conversation today is I was getting direct messages on Instagram from a guy who was in contest prep. And at the time, he was 9 weeks out, I think, 8 or 9 weeks out. And he was asking me a lot of complicated questions. He's trying to get leaner. He's like, well, what about Anavar? What about Winstrol? I kept telling him, steroids aren't going to get you lean. I did a whole video about that. Steroids don't get you ripped. It's your diet and your cardio. And yes, there are fat-burning drugs that people use, not steroids, but other drugs. Clenbuterol being the most widely used of all of them. Thyroid drugs are used a lot, and the dreaded DNP, which I am personally very much against. I believe it's much too dangerous for people to be screwing around with. So the first thing I said was, you're asking a lot. You sound like you need a lot of help. You sound like you need a coach. Turns out he had a coach. He's actually a very, very high-profile person in this industry. He's on YouTube too. And I'm not going to mention his name or throw him under the bus because I don't know if this person was giving him the diet and the cardio and this guy just wasn't following it. Because when I finally clicked on his profile and looked at his pictures at 8 or 9 weeks out, I was horrified at the condition he was in. I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't want anyone to get this fat in the deepest, darkest depths of their off season. I would never want a bodybuilder who intended to compete someday to get as fat as this guy was at 8 or 9 weeks out from his show. So I said, you probably need to, I won't get into your diet and your cardio because you're paying somebody. You're paying a very well-respected, big-name coach to do that for you. I don't know if he's following their instructions again. So I'm not going to get into that, but you really need to probably pick a later show. There's no way in hell you're going to be ready in time. And my sneaking suspicion, I strongly suspect that this gentleman was looking toward drugs, relying on drugs to do the work in terms of taking the fat off of him. And from the looks of him, I guess he had been much heavier before. He had already dropped, I think, like 50 or 60 pounds, but he had a long way to go still. This is someone who let himself get obese. He was, identified more as a power lifter / bodybuilder, which is a lot of guys' excuse for, that's how they justify just eating whatever they want and getting way too fat. I personally believe in Arnold Schwarzenegger old saying that if you can't see your intercostals anymore, he called them serratus. If you can't see this at all, you're not a bodybuilder anymore. You're just a fat load. So needless to say, I didn't consult with him on what he needed to do for eating, but that is a prevailing attitude now, is that the diet's not that important. The training's not that important. It's all drugs. Well, let me put it this way. Let's assume that everyone's on drugs. That's, a lot of people are on drugs, steroids and the other drugs. They're very, very widely used now. So why don't we have way more people? There's way more people on drugs now. Trust me, that's a fact. They can order them online. They can get them on social media. There's a lot of guys on drugs now, a lot of them. Why aren't we seeing, a million Ronnie Colemans, a million Big Ramis? Why aren't we seeing a lot more really impressive physiques? I see a lot of very, very mediocre physiques, a lot. And, again, that comes down to genetics for the most part. Structural issues, people can't really do a damn thing about. If your clavicles are this wide, there's no drug in the world that's going to make them this wide. If your hips are like this, there's no fat-burning drug that's going to make your hip bones. Your bones are what they are. Your structure is set in stone. I'm sorry to tell you, you're born with a certain bone structure, and that's the same bone structure you're going to die with eventually. So drugs can't change that. Drugs can't change your muscle belly insertions, where the muscles insert, the shape of the muscles, none of that. That's all genetic. So the very best bodybuilders are always going to be the people with the best genetics, who train the hardest and eat the best. You're going to say, no, it's the people with the best drugs. Well, trust me, you guys, you all have access to the same drugs. You really do. You think the pros have some crazy secret underground lab in the desert in Roswell, New Mexico or something, where they have alien technology, steroids from the beta quadrant or something. I don't know, some far-flung corner of the universe. No, man, everyone's using the same drugs. More and more, you're going to say, well, higher doses are probably going to be the ticket. Well, that's another misconception. I'm not going to say that the pros don't use larger amounts. They do, because they're larger people. I don't think a guy who competes at 260 pounds would necessarily be able to get the same results from the same amount of drugs as someone who is 150 pounds. I do believe a larger person who eats a lot more, who trains a dose of drugs. That's my feeling on the matter. But they still have to do the work. Drugs will never do the work for you. You still have to do the work. Yes, there have been studies where like elderly people were given testosterone and they still gain muscle even without exercise. Sure. But I don't know anyone who's taken a bunch of drugs, not trained, not eaten well, and looked anything impressive at all. You still have to work hard. You still have to train hard. You still have to eat right. You still have to get enough rest. Drugs can certainly give you a much larger margin for error, meaning you can probably get away with missing a meal here and there, missing a good night's sleep here and there, not training quite as hard as the next guy if you're on drugs and the other guy isn't. Steroids work. I would never for a minute try to bamboozle you guys into thinking or convincing you that steroids don't work. In fact, I was rereading the book Pumping Iron by Charles Gaines. I'm sorry. George Butler was the director of the movie. And he referenced in the book, they only talked about steroids for not even one page in the whole book. And at the time in the 70s, there was research being done. There was one scientist at Kent State University in Ohio who concluded that steroids don't work the way they don't produce gains in muscle mass or strength. It's all a placebo effect. It was all in the heads of the people using them. That's complete bullshit. We know that. We know that steroids work. We know they're effective, but you still have to do the work. They're not the Holy Grail. They're not going to suddenly take a lazy person with terrible genetics, give them a bunch of drugs, steroids and other drugs, growth hormone, insulin, whatever, and they're not going to look like Rami. They're just not. It's a bitter pill to swallow, because we live in a society where everyone is after the quick fix, the easy way out. I mean, look at all these the weight loss scams. They're everywhere. You turn on your TV. It's a pill that'll do this, or it's a 3-minute ab roller workout, or it's something that requires minimal effort but promises maximum results. Anytime something sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. It's not true. It's people, but nobody wants to hear that you have to work hard to see the results. It's a bitter pill to swallow. I don't know if you guys have any questions yet. I'm gonna check on that now. So let's see. We are live. Any questions, guys? Hello? You can Heiko Callback. I don't know what I remember Heiko Callback from Germany. He was a freaky, freaky bodybuilder. I don't know what you're asking. I interviewed him once and did an article on him once. Geez, probably 15 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. So that was all the questions. So I guess I'll wrap this one up a little early, and I usually make these things, I drag these things on for quite a while. Oh, we got a question now, do we? Brandon, I don't think the majority of people want to look like a massive bodybuilder. I think more people are interested in the fitness model look. Oh, absolutely. That's a huge reason that open bodybuilding, the numbers have been down, way, way down over what they were years ago. I think most guys want to just look really athletic and fit. They want to have a little bit of muscle, a six-pack. Look at most of the fitness influencers who have huge, huge followings. They're not massive, obviously roided out guys. They're more athletic, more men's physique type, even though I'm not saying they're not on drugs. These people are, most of them are on drugs too, believe me, because they maintain that look all year. But yeah, even in that case, to attain that look, like the men's physique look, it still takes a good amount of work. You still have to eat very clean. You can't eat a bunch of garbage. You can't eat like pizza and donuts, Captain Crunch for every meal and expect to have a clear-cut six-pack and lines here and there. It's very unrealistic. What else? Yeah, okay. Hey, Ron. This is from Oli Hughes. What would you say are 3 safest injectable AAS for gaining muscles with the least side effects? Okay, I'm not a drug expert, so I have to say that. This is just from my experience from talking to many people. That's what I'm going to base my answer on. I'm not a drug expert. Don't want to be a drug expert. I leave that to the people who have the education and the inclination to really learn all that stuff in detail. Testosterone is always going to be the best choice. That's what your body makes. Your body makes testosterone. So putting in testosterone, it's not shocking the body with anything crazy. Decadurabolin, nandrolone, decanoate. Deca has always had a pretty good reputation for being fairly safe in small doses. And I'd say another injectable that you could probably get away with using with minimal side effects would be primobolan. It's more expensive. It's mainly used in contest prep. But yeah, you're not going to have crazy side effects. Probably the worst, the most dangerous injectable you can probably get your hands on is trenbolone. But people love it because it gives fast results. Most people use the acetate, the fast-acting version. You will see gains in size and strength. You don't hold water on it, so you look leaner. It doesn't make you leaner, but you're holding less water. You're not puffy, so it gives you a leaner look for that reason. But very, very rough on the kidney, the liver, the blood pressure. Gives you insomnia, makes you cough when you inject. It's just it has a litany of bad side effects. Unfortunately, there's no free lunch. Brandon Tyler, thoughts on genetics, steroid usage, something like that? Or do you think stay natural? If your goal is simply being leaner and athletic, yeah. If you just want to be lean and athletic, don't bother. You don't need steroids for that. For a beach body, the type of body that, let's be real, guys. Most young guys, certainly this was my reason when I was a young guy, very young, when I was starting out like 13, 14. I wanted to be a little more appealing to the girls. Girls don't. They're not attracted to like a big Rami or a Kai Green, a big, massive, silverback gorilla-looking human being. That's a turnoff. They think that's disgusting. It's gross. It's just too much. Most women, they are attracted to an athletic look, broad shoulders, little bit of muscle for sure, and they want to see lean condition. They want to see a six-pack. They want to see a chiseled face. They usually want to see cool hair, but I can't help you with the hair, obviously. So if that's the look you're after, you could get that look quicker with steroids, but you certainly don't need steroids to achieve that look. I used to get mad because people would say, natural guys would say, you can look like Mr. Olympia naturally. It's just going to take you longer. Dude, you could live to be 1,000,000 years old. You can live forever, and you're never going to look like, let's just say you had the genetics. Anyway, you're never going to build that amount of muscle without drugs that you would with drugs. So that's a complete crock of shit. But you certainly can get that beach body, really appealing athletic look without drugs. Just train hard, eat right, do your cardio, keep lean. You build a little bit of muscle. It's going to take you longer, like I said, but you'll be better off. You're going to save money on steroids. You're not going to be risking your health at all. You're not going to be taking any legal chances buying it, through the mail or something online or whatever. There always is a risk. So yeah, stay natural if that's what you're after. Nice picture, thanks. Hi Ron, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks Ron. I'm a fan of Masteron. I've used Masteron a few times. I don't notice anything special about it. It's more of a contest prep, finishing touch drug. I don't think anybody would want to use it in the off season. Certainly contest prep, it's used very, very extensively. Again, there's no water retention with it. Um, yeah, I mean, I've used it a few times and I was happy with the way I looked, but that's the only time I would even consider using Masteron is if I was competing or I don't know, getting ready for like a magazine photo shoot or something. Magazine. You guys, there are no more magazines except for us anymore. Brandon again, do you think there's something to say someone who is mid-20s with middle reference range T levels using TRT or slightly superphysiological test doses to optimize since you'll need to eventually? Well, the problem with that is once you start that, you're going to have to stay on it forever. And if you're cool with that, go for it. But just understand that as soon as you start introducing synthetic testosterone into your body stops producing it naturally on its own. If you're young enough and you haven't used a ton of high doses for long periods, you'll get your own production back. People kickstart it, they get it going quicker with post-cycle therapy, PCT. But you don't even need that. When I was in my 20s, when I started steroids at 27, and from about 27 to 35, 36, I would take plenty of time off between cycles, and I would still get my own production back. It was taking longer and longer as the years went by, and eventually my production never came back. And by 38 or 39, I was on TRT. I had to be on test at all times, at least a TRT dose, because my body was making my total test was like 190 or 210 or something ridiculous. So just understand that as soon as you introduce that extra test, you start injecting it, now your body has no reason to make it. So you're going to have to be on it forever. I would try to ride out what you have now for a little while longer, and then maybe you can look into it. But like I said, it's a slippery slope. Once you start using steroids, your own production is going to be impaired, and eventually it's not going to be producing any at all. Okay, appreciate your answering. Thank you. Sir, what do you prefer? Okay, Kamaran Omar. Sir, must be from India. They're very polite. What you prefer to do or to eat for someone who is hard gaining? For a hard gainer, it's hard to eat enough clean food. And I don't want to tell you to eat a bunch of junk because I don't believe in anybody profiting from eating a bunch of crap food with low nutrient profiles. I think you want to look for nutrient dense foods that have a lot of nutrients and foods that are higher in calories. So you probably want a lot of healthy fats. You want to have a lot of things like salmon, leaner cuts of red meat, white meat cuts of pork, chicken thighs, nuts, peanut butter, almond butter, whole milk, whole eggs, rice, potatoes, oatmeal, fruits, vegetables, a lot of nutrient dense, calorically dense foods. Eating has to be a job. So many people tell me they can't gain weight and they say, I eat so much, I eat a lot. I go, really? Let's hear it. Tell me what you ate yesterday, everything you ate from the time you woke up. And by the time they actually rattle off everything they ate in a day, I'm like, dude, you just described, like 3 small meals and a shake. And you think that's a lot of food. Here I am, 51 years old, going on 52. I'm still eating 5 solid meals and a shake every day. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of cooking. It's a lot of cleaning up. It's a lot of time invested. Eating takes time. It's a job. It's basically like a part-time job, the eating portion of all this. But you have to make it. You have to make it your job, especially if you're a hard gainer. If you're a hard gainer, if you have real high metabolism, you're not someone who puts on weight easily, even fat weight. You do have to eat a lot more than the average person. I would also say to try to, if you can, restrict your extracurricular activity outside the weight room. If you can get away with doing at least physical activity as possible outside of your training, do, because it's all calories in. You need to be in a caloric surplus to grow, which means you need to be taking in more calories every day than your body's burning up. And someone with that type of metabolism, a real high burning metabolism, you're burning a lot of calories like all the time. So you need to stay on top of that. You need to be going over on the other side, a caloric surplus, rather than a maintenance level of calories, or worse, a caloric deficit. Hope I answered that well enough, because I mean that could be a whole show on how to eat. Ron, you look good, thank you. It's my Walking Dead shirt. Walking Dead, greatest show ever. Did you guys check out Negan's backstory? It took him all these years to finally show us Negan's origin story. It was really cool. Brandon again. Wow, good for you. I'm personally sitting in the camp of, if you're going to use steroids, I think you should stay on TRT for life, since it seems healthier than taking SARMs, PCT. Yeah, the thing about SARMs, the reason I'm so, I don't want to say anti-SARMs, but I certainly don't support them in any way, because they haven't been around that long. We don't know. They've never been tested, in the type of tests that the FDA would require for a drug to be taken to market. When these drugs that come out, these expensive pharmaceutical, these prescription drugs for whatever, for depression or psoriasis or you name it, all these things you see commercials for, it takes about six to 8 years for one of those drugs to go from formulation to being in the pharmacy. It takes years and millions of dollars of research and trials. They have to really prove it's safe and effective. They have to prove it does what it's supposed to do, and it's reasonably safe, meaning, people aren't dying. They're not taking a drug from psoriasis and it's killing them from some other function. So SARMs, they're not a proven entity that way. They don't have that kind of research behind them. I'm worried about SARMs the way most people are worried about the freaking COVID virus. Like, what's that going to do to us in a year or 2 or 10 years? We don't know. There wasn't time to have 8 years worth of trials. We had to get that crap on the market. So we don't know what's going to happen. So was that your question? Yeah, I mean, if you're going to use steroids, and eventually you're going to have to be on TRT between your cycles. If you continue doing cycles, you're going to have to be on a TRT dose in between anyway, because your own production is going to be gone. It's going to be in the basement. You won't be able to, get erections. You'll be depressed. You'll be tired. You'll be weak. Your life will suck. You won't enjoy it. Blast and cruise, basically. I mean, that's what I do. People get mad at me because, you're so old. You're so old. Why do you still blast every now and then? To me, blasting is like still less than a gram total a week. So if I'm blasting, a blast for me would be like, my cruise is more. It's what I don't stay on 200. I use 400 milligrams of test a week. That's me. I'm not saying for you to do this. I'm not saying it's healthy or safe for anyone else. For me, based on regular medical testing, it is safe and it is healthy. I'm very fortunate, very fortunate. My family has, my mother's side of the family from, Moldova, Ukraine, Romania, just tough genes. I don't know why, but, we've had people, I've had siblings that, they lived long past what you would think that were drug addicts and everything. So I'm safe doing that. But if I blast, it's going to be like 600 milligrams of test, and then I might throw in, all right, I guess it is a gram, like 400 milligrams of Deca or Equipoise or something like that. Maybe even Tren if I'm feeling feisty, but that would be a very limited amount of time. I wouldn't be on Tren for more than a month. Anyway, what was the next question? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, somebody from Greece, because I can't read your name. It's in those Greek characters. I used to take steroids before. Is my testosterone will be lower all the time? Never produce testosterone well enough naturally. Is that possibly repair at natural level? Yeah, it's an individual thing. Some people, and like I said, especially if you're younger and you didn't use large doses of steroids and you weren't on them for months on end, you probably will get your natural production back. There's no way to predict though. Some people, they kill their production much quicker than others. You know why? Because we're all different. We're all wired differently. We all have slightly different reactions to all these things. So some people will use smaller amounts of steroids, not even staying on that long, and they will have to go on TRT because their natural production gets crushed. Where other people can use pretty hefty doses of steroids for a long time, and they'll go off, and their production does come back. Why? Who knows? Where you fall into that, no, who's to say? You won't know unless, So your question, sir, from Greece, I'm thinking it is that Russian or Greek? I think that's Greek. Yeah, that's got to be Greek. Yeah, you'll know. I mean, you'll feel if you still have a really good sex drive and you have good erections. As far as I'm concerned, that's the number one indicator that your test levels they're just fine. if you're still feeling horny and you're still getting good erections, your test levels are pretty damn good. That's, to me, the easiest thing. Of course, you can go by strength and, my muscle size and all that, but you want to make it easy, guys. Your sex drive and your erectile function, very, very easy markers of your testosterone. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to know all the ins and outs of this, but I think that's a pretty safe assumption. What supplements? This is from Invectic. What supplements should I get to keep my health in check when I do my first 400 milligram cycle? That's a good question for Dr. T, Dr. Tuliados. So please go on this channel to Ask Dr. Testosterone. We just did another episode on Monday that was posted here on YouTube on Tuesday. Leave that in there. He will tell you exactly. I'm not the guy. He's the guy. He's the man for that, for sure. Anything else? Okay, guys, I'm going to try to wrap it up, but every time I do that, see, there's another question. What are your thoughts on people who have... Where's that question? Oh, I can't see it. Oh, there it is. Brandon again. Brandon, you're coming up with some great questions today. Brandon says, what are your thoughts on people who have middle reference range to slightly below versus higher reference range? Do you think that's even worth it, assuming symptoms aren't an issue? Just fitness related. It's okay, Brandon. Dr. O'Connor, who I do a show with every now and then, he'll tell you this. You can look at numbers on your blood work and everything, but the number one thing he always asks these guys is, how do you feel? Because that's more important than a number on a chart or a printout or a computer screen. How do you feel? So let's say your test is your total test, even though free test is more important in the scheme of things. But let's just say, because that determines how much of the test is actually circulating. Let's say you have 500. Your level is 500. That's pretty good mid-range. It's not high. It's not low. But some people would say, oh no, that's still not high enough. I want my test to be like 800, 900, 1,000. But how do you feel? Like I said, sex drive. Do you have a good sex drive? You're getting good erections? Are you getting stronger? Are you getting bigger? I mean, if all those things are happening, this just goes back to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're doing fine the way you are, why put anything in? I would wait until there's a problem, until you really need it. Just like anything else. Why put a drug in your body, Steroids, they're not safe. They're not. I use them. I've been using them for many, many years, but I would never, ever tell you guys, steroids are safe. Go for it. Use all the steroids you want, guys. They're not. There are safer ways to use steroids, mainly using more moderate doses, taking time off, but really keeping an eye on things like your blood pressure, your kidney levels, your liver values, things like that. Getting your heart checked, getting scans, see if you have calcium in your arteries. I get all that done, so I know. I don't just guess. Well, I think I feel good. I do get it all checked, especially because I'm older and I have kids. They're older. They're 21 and 27, but I still want to be around for my kids for a very long time. I want to see my grandchildren. I want to see the future. So I want to be around. So sorry to know we're trying to wrap. Okay, I think that is all. I am going to wrap it up now. It's Friday. You guys have an awesome weekend. Appreciate you guys watching these shows. If you like the videos, please share them. Please drop some comments here. I do respond to all the comments. I'm not that busy. I am busy, but I do like to respond to comments because I appreciate the feedback, good or bad. Sometimes it's pretty bad. Sometimes these YouTube comments are just brutal, but you know what? That's part of the game. You gotta expect that. So please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit that bell thing so you're notified when we have new videos coming out. Like I said, Monday is a great show we have coming up with Kevin Levroni, the Levroni Report with Milo Sarshev. They really got into the insulin discussion. That's going to be interesting for you guys to listen to if you want to hear how he developed his theories and all that stuff. It's eye-opening. And then we have Jose Raymond show next week, Dr. T, more and more stuff. We'll keep it coming. So appreciate you guys watching, being viewers very much. Thanks, and have an awesome weekend. Bye-bye. Can't end? Trying to end it. Oh, there we go.